What is up, everyone? I am TST's the Mudman. It's time to figure out what we are going to play this weekend ranked in Gods Unchained. So, it finally happened. The Winter Wonderland mini set has dropped. 20 cards in all, 19 of which are playable right now, and the meta has been shaken up thoroughly. We're on gudex.com looking at the Mythic meta over the past day because the set dropped just over a day ago. We're looking at God popularity, and as you can see, War is the new most popular God. Aggro War specifically is the most popular archetype. Last week and for the past couple of weeks, Aggro War has been very weak. However, they recently got access to Imp of White Plains, which is really pushing the Aggro War archetype in general. The second most popular god is Nature, and believe it or not, the most popular Nature archetype since the new set came out is not Aggressive Wild Nature, it's actually Control Nature, because Control Nature also got some powerful tools. Next up, we have Deception. Deception didn't get a ton of love in the new set. Maybe that final 20th card will help Deception get a new archetype, but until then, it's the same old Aggro Deception and Control Deception we're used to. Aggro Deception, however, is much more popular than Control. Then we have Light. Light is almost always Zoo Light. Zoo Light got a couple of powerful new cards, but Control Light also got some strong new tools. So more people are playing Control Light than last week. However, Zoo Light is still far more popular than Control Light. Next up, we have Magic. Magic, like Deception, didn't get a ton of great new cards in this next set, so it's the same old Control Magic's the most common archetype. It could be Tempo Magic, it could be Combo Magic. If you see your opponent picks Clear Mind God Power, it probably means they're combo. But if they go with Mage Bolt, then they're probably Control. Could be Tempo, but usually Control. And then the least popular god is Death, and Death's most popular archetype is currently Anubians. Zombies are also playable. They're nowhere near as popular as Nubians, though, and like I say every week, if you see your Death opponent picks the Soulburn God Power, they're Zombies. If they pick the Blood Ritual God Power, then they're probably Nubians. And before we talk about any of the specific decks you might want to play this week, we gotta get the unfortunate truth out of the way. If you really want to do well this weekend, then check out last week's videos, the weeks before that. The decks that have been tried and true, decks that have been tested for weeks on end and are proven good, will probably perform better this weekend than the brand new archetypes that have only existed for a day. So if you really want to win, or you don't want to buy these new cards, you just want to win them, check out last week's videos. There's plenty of great decks that'll perform very well. But now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's look at some cool new decks that you might want to play this weekend. Alright, let's start things off with the most popular god in War. Today I have two different War decks to show you, but we're going to start things off with this brand new archetype. This is like Big Relic Combo War, and technically this deck was made by me, but it was very heavily inspired by a list made by Clutch. And I spent all day playing with various versions of this deck style, and this is the list that I ended up with. Mainly you're using your relic combos. Everyone knows, or I guess we should probably start with Woodcutter Imp, brand new card from Winter Wonderland. It's a 2-mana 3/3 with God Blitz, so it can just go face right when you play it. It's kind of nuts. It does have a downside in quotes. After this creature attacks, your god takes damage equal to the damage dealt. So it hurts you a little bit when you attack with it, but also it has the same stats as Underbrush Boar, but can go face or hit whatever creature you want. It's just super crazy. So obviously it gives you a lot of potential for big burst damage from hand. The weeks leading up to Winter Wonderland coming out, everybody was talking about Sharpen in combination with the Imp. With no relic on the board at all, it's 4 mana, 6 damage right to your opponent's face. That is a good amount going upstairs. If you do have a relic equipped, say a Blade of Sticks, it's 12 damage to your opponent's face. That's almost half their life, and that's just with one card or one creature and one spell. Clutch, however, realized that you can do more, big relic combos. There's also Lead the Charge in combination with cards like Whetstone. Lead the Charge is a 2-mana spell that if you have a relic equipped, it makes all of your creatures' attack equal to your relic's attack total. So you can play, one of your relics, whether it be a Blade of Sticks or a Scythe the Harvest, play a Whetstone, or, a Sharpen. Any way you can buff that relic up, and then make all of your creatures equal to power with your relic. Obviously, your Woodcutter Imp can attack the turn you play it, so you can make a huge relic and your Woodcutter Imp and deal a bunch of damage. You may have also noticed there are a lot of hidden creatures in this deck. That is to help facilitate the Lead the Charge combos. We have all of the cheap hidden creatures, 2 Darkside Prowlers, 2 Nightleaf Warriors, as well as 2 Encumbered Looters. These are cards that are difficult to interact with. Zoo Light has a very hard time destroying a hidden creature. Like a Nubian Death has a very hard time dealing with hidden creatures. So you can just sort of play this the turn before you want to do your combo, and then when you play Lead the Charge and your Imp, You know, you also have a Dockside Prowler, maybe a Nightleaf, maybe both, and you do a whole lot of damage. It's a very strong combination. There's another very interesting card I want to go over, and that is Grand Hall. When I put Grand Hall in this deck initially, it was mainly just because it could also capitalize off of playing those hidden creatures in the early game, and then you can get a good amount of damage in, and also heal up so you can sustain longer to eventually kill your opponent. However, Grand Hall synergizes incredibly well with the Imp of White Plains. You might be thinking that giving the Imp Leech just negates the downside of its effect, and it just becomes a 2-mana 3/3 with Blitz, no downside, but it actually just gives it effective Leech. So if you give this Leech, let's say it's a 4-attack creature with Leech, you go face, heal for 4, deal 4 damage to your own face, and then that 4 damage you dealt to your own face heals back up. So it doesn't just neutralize the effect, it also just gives it Leech. So it's incredibly powerful. It's also very good with those aforementioned hidden creatures. Um, it's very easy for this deck to deal 30 damage in one turn. For example, if you have just one Dockside Prowler on the board and one Scythe the Harvest, maybe even a buffed Scythe the Harvest from your I Need a Weapon, you can, your Relic is already equipped, your Dockside Prowler survives because it's hard to deal with. The next turn, you can, play 2 Whetstones, you can play your Imp, lead the charge, go all face, and if you hit them with a 12 attack relic, a 12 attack creature, and another 12 attack creature, 12 plus 12 plus 12 is more than 30, and they're just dead, and it's because they left up one little 1-mana 2/2. So this deck is very explosive, it's very new. I haven't played a ton of games with this list. Like I said, I've been playing variations of this deck, all day long. We can't know for sure if this is a good archetype, but it's new, it's explosive, it's cool, and I think it could be good this weekend. Alright, the second war deck I want to go over is an aggro war list made by Gerald, and this is a more contemporary, like Viking war list. It, functions a lot like Zoo Light. You play creatures, you buff creatures, you just, capitalize on your board state, taking a bunch of value trades, go face, overwhelm your opponent. It's an archetype that hasn't been great in the past, however, it now has Imp of White Plains, an incredibly powerful card. It doesn't have any of the relic synergies, not really any ways to buff the Imp of White Plains, but it is, if you have 2 of them in your hand, it's 6 damage, 6 surprise damage. You get it. It's a 2-mana 3/3 with Goblet. It's very, very strong. So if you have experience playing like normal Viking War, you can just slot this in here. As you can see, Gerald has played 25 games with an 80% win rate, so this list definitely works. And any deck that's running the Imp of White Plains is probably going to do well at this weekend ranked event. Alright, next up we have a Control Nature. This list was made by Mighty Uncle, and this list only has 1 new card in it, but it is a very impactful new card. Let's go over that one first. It is Winter's Bounty, a 6-mana spell. Set your god's maximum health total to 40 and heal your god for 20. So obviously it is an extremely low tempo turn the turn you play this. Initially when this card was spoiled, I didn't think it'd be very good. But after some testing, I haven't played this list specifically, but I've played Control Nature lists, and turns out Winter's Bounty is actually pretty good. This deck having 1 Winter's Bounty, as well as 2 Compost Charms and 2 Demos, there's over 40 points of healing in this deck, which is just a ton. Most aggro decks tend to run out of steam at some point, while you've healed for 40. Your opponents have to deal at least 70 damage to actually beat you, and a lot of aggro decks have a very hard time with doing that. Since we are a control deck, we're obviously going to the late game, and Mighty Uncle has packed a lot of powerful late game cards into this deck. We have Sage of Renewal, a big threatening creature, as well as some value, giving you some random nature cards in your hand. We have Seasonal Rebirth, nature's most powerful removal tool, and seeing as you may have as much as 40 health, giving your opponent a board full of 1/1 walking plants is no big deal. We have Jotun for a big, huge beat stick, 8 mana, 10/12 with Overkill, and Roar deal 3 damage to each creature, should clear board and potentially kill your opponent, very powerful. And then the final big value card is Dionysus, a 9 mana 8/8 that fills your hand up with random nature cards and sets their health to 1. It's pretty much the most value you can get from a single card. Most control decks nowadays usually use Therial for their, value generation. This deck obviously doesn't have Therial. It makes up for it with, the big Dionysuses and the Jotuns and stuff like that. A list like this might be more susceptible to a Cutthroat than a Therial style list, but that being said, if your opponent does Cutthroat one of your big creatures, you have more big stuff. You, of course, have your Martyr of White Plains to generate more things. We went over the demo, of course, when you're playing against those aggro decks, this can just close out the game. Maybe you pair with a White Plains, so you get 3 demos instead of just 2. I guess the last important thing to go over is you may have noticed at the 6 mana slot we have 1 Hunt and 1 Sudden Bloom. Usually control decks run, 1 Hunt and 2 Enchanted Vines, maybe no Hunts and Enchanted Vines. But Mighty Uncle has gone with Sudden Bloom, and he also has 2 copies of Feral Shapeshifter, a creature that's very easy to target with the Sudden Bloom. Giving Feral Shapeshifter +4/+4 Twin Strike and Overkill is usually a better way to clear your opponent's board than with the Enchanted Vines. So I like that, and as you can see, Mighty Uncle has played 24 games with a 79% win rate. 44 other games have been played with a 70% win rate, so this deck definitely wins most of the time, and it's another fun new archetype that you might want to try at this weekend ranked event. Alright, now let's move on to Aggro Deception. This list was made by the Professor, and Aggro Deception hasn't received any new cards in the Winter Wonderland set, so this is a pretty standard Hidden Rush Deception list. All the cards in the Deception category are very normal. You got your strong creatures, you've got your various creature buffs. You go face, you make your cards hard to interact with, and your opponent just can't deal with them. I do want to talk about the 5 mana cards. This is usually the flex area in the Hidden Rush Deception list, and I'm a big fan of both of Professor's 5-drops. Oftentimes you run just 1 Reflection Elementalist or 1 Lethal Prowler. He has both of which are very strong. Reflection Elementalist is great against control decks, and seeing as nature is going to be control-oriented, it should be very strong. It's good against the majority of nature's AoE. It's obviously great against magics like Shape Blast and stuff like that. If we're going to be a control-ish meta, then this is going to be a great card to fight against AoE, considering Hidden Rush Deception is usually very weak to AoE. The other 5 mana card is, of course, Lethal Prowler, which is great for some, surprise burst. After you've played, all of your Dark Knives and all of your Assassin's Aims, your opponent probably doesn't think you have any more burst damage, but surprise, there's 5 more damage. And this card pairs extremely nicely with the Shadow of Lethanon. You play your little cat, which is hidden forever and is very hard to interact with, and then you play your big cat, your little cat goes face, your big cat follows, and all of a sudden your opponent has taken 6 damage and maybe they're dead. Depending on how common Control Nature is this weekend, you may not want to play Hidden Rush Deception, but if Control Nature isn't that popular and you want to finish your weekend run quickly, then a list like this could be a great choice for you. Alright, now we have Control Light. This list was made by the godfather of Control Light himself in Raihan, and this is a fairly standard Control Light list. However, Control Light did get 2 very powerful new tools. Let's check them out. The first one is the Light Legendary, Mary Cadmos. This is a 5 mana 3/4 creature with frontline, and Roar pick one. However, the pick one is up for interpretation. It really only has one choice that you ever pick. But Roar pick one, pull a creature from the board, put it on the top of its controller's deck, or give +2/+2 to your chosen one. You probably never ever choose the chosen one effect unless you know for a fact your chosen one's on the board and you need 2 more damage to win the game that turn. 99.9 times out of 100, you are picking the first effect, which is pulling a creature from your opponent's board onto the top of their deck. It's essentially just wrong pass on a stick, and the creature it has is pretty strong. A 3/4 is a decent-sized body. Frontline is very convenient. It has 3 attack, which means it can be eaten by Martyr of White Plains. However, it has 4 health, which means that the Martyr won't draw off of it, which is very relevant. Just essentially, it's an extremely high tempo play. It bricks your opponent's next draw. You can put a bad thing on the top of their deck, but it's card game 101. You play a creature, you remove an opposing creature, and you weaken their next turn. So it's just very, very powerful. It fits in every single Light deck, whether it be Zoo Light or Control Light. It's just that good. The other new card that Light has access to is Thawed Heart, which is a 2 mana spell. Obliterate your opponent's void. Each creature you obliterated, you heal your god for 1. So this card just single-handedly beats Anubians. Obviously, Control Light had a good matchup against Anubians anyway, but realistically, this beats pretty much any death deck. It beats Board Wipe Death, it beats Anubians. It's annoying for zombies, but most death decks run Afterlife effects, and this completely ruins it. It stops Poetic Knowledges for magic. It ruins Hevnirs if nature's ever running Hevnirs. Obviously, if you've been playing Gods Unchained, you know that the Void is a pretty relevant spot in the meta currently, and this just removes it entirely, and you might even get a lot of healing. And healing is something that Light hasn't really had great access to. Obviously, you have your Heal God power, and you have cards like Recovering Sigil as well as Cern, which can all heal you, but they heal you for small amounts. Whereas this has the potential to heal you for a lot, potentially clearing your opponent's board, or clearing your opponent's void and healing you out of burst range. So it's a very important, mass heal effect that Light didn't have access to before, and now it does. and that's a very powerful effect in any control light list. Besides that, it's, the normal control light stuff, lots of order cards. You have your Radiant Embalmer, plus your Inescapable Duty for tons of value. You have your Therial for lots of value. You have Lysander's Mercy to just say no to your opponent's board. It's a very strong deck. Oh, you gotta talk about Lysander's Spear whenever it's in a deck. This card wins games on its own. It can just overwhelm your opponent easily. It sticks around forever because you have plenty of light-specific cards. So far, it seems like Control Light is going to be a very strong archetype again, and a list like Ryan's here should do very well this weekend ranked event. Alright, and the final archetype to discuss is Sifu's Control Magic list. I usually refer to magic lists like this as value magic, since it's a control magic list with no dedicated win condition, just lots of value. We talked about a very similar list to this one a couple of weeks ago in this series, either 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's a very fun deck, very strong. It has all of the control magic tools you know and love. We have all 6 of the bolts. We have Safeguard Incantation. We've got our Shape Blast, of course. We have our Unbound Flames, so we can clear the boards. We have Nithos in here, which is just excellent to deal with Martyrs of White Plains. You can, obviously transform the Martyr so they can't get the Martyr, and you deny whatever big creature they were going to play, until they destroy the Nithos. It's a very effective counter to the Martyr of White Plains. It's not a great counter to other things, but great against that Martyr. We have a single copy of Pyrrhic Knowledge, probably so we can get some more, big AoE board clears. We do have some, over-the-top damage. We have those aforementioned Unbound Flames. We also have 2 copies of Leyhorde Hatchlings, as well as 2 copies of Portal Wranglers. You can use Portal Wrangler to either get a high-value creature, like more Demos, more Eric the Dragons, or more Jasons, or you can use them to get more Leyhorde Hatchlings for just more burst damage. And then as we get to the value side of this deck, I went over it a bit already. We have Eric the Dragon, which is a big frontline creature that can become even bigger in combination with Martyr of White Plains. We have Jason's, for a big slew of legendary creatures. Also, it's going to help you a lot in the fatigue matchups, and with nature having 40 health and just trying to, gas out their opponents, having 3 extra cards in your deck or more, you want to pair it with Martyr of White Plains, can be very important in those matchups. We also have Relic Removal in here, which is very important. It gets rid of all of those Lysander's Spears, it gets rid of whatever Relic Death is running, and if War is going to be trying to do 30 damage from hand with Relic combinations, it's very important for this to destroy those. Essentially, this is a strong control deck. It's very fun. It should be able to outvalue control archetypes like Nature or Control War, or even Control Deception. There's not enough cutthroats in the world to deal with all of this value. So if you're a fan of Magic, if you like cool value plays, if you like random Jason cards, then this could be a great choice for this weekend ranked event. Alright, it is conclusion time. We looked at the God popularity, we checked out the decks, we hovered over the new cards and went, hey, what's that do? So what should we play this weekend ranked in Gods Unchained? Well, in my opinion, you should go with the new big Relic combo War or Control Nature. It's a brand new meta. Why not celebrate with a brand new archetype? But whatever you go with, try to have fun. Tell us how you did in the TST Discord and in the comments below, and have a wonderful day. Hey, you! Did you know that subscribing to the TST YouTube channel will increase your win rate by 6.9%? So what are you waiting for? Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for notifications. And while you're at it, equip Scythe of the Harvest and attack the like button directly in the face. Bye-bye!